understanding Turing's strange inversion helps us understand Darwin's strange inversion. And notice, many people can't abide Darwin's strange inversion. We call them creationists. It's not so much that they don't believe it, although they don't, but that they can't stand it. They have a repugnance to the idea. Many people can't abide Turing's strange inversion either. I propose that we might call them mind creationists. Amazingly, a few people seem to be both. Perhaps it's not so amazing. Who, for instance? Well, who are both kinds of creationists? Well, Jerry Fodor, the philosopher and psychologist, and Thomas Nagel, another well-known philosopher of mind. Nagel kept his anti-evolutionism under wraps until just last year, when he wrote an amazing and sort of dismaying article in Philosophy and Public Affairs called Public Education and Intelligent Design. But then there's some other interesting varieties too. For instance, the evolutionary theorist, the paleontologist Simon Conway Morris, who certainly believes in evolution except for the mind. He's recently come out with some remarkable and really almost creationist reflections. He's famous, and duly so, for having been, in fact, I'm going to be talking about one of his major discoveries a little later in the talk, and that is the Burgess Shale fauna. John Searle, the philosopher, has not really made it clear how he stands on evolution, but in his discussion of what he calls original intentionality, he's made it very clear that he regards the mind as something that cannot be approached from below, from a mere Turing-esque absolute ignorance. In other words, he treats the mind as what I call a skyhook. Now, let me tell you about cranes and skyhooks. This is a concept from my book, Darwin's Dangerous Idea. I'm happy to say it's caught on quite a bit. I'd love to see evolutionary theorists talking about cranes and skyhooks. What you have to do is imagine design space. Now, design space is a logical space. It's the space of all possible designs, both natural, like elm trees and whales, and artificial, like BMWs and aircraft carriers and the rest. So we have this space of all possible designs. And then we can think of R&D, whether it's intelligent or not, as lifting in design space. After all, R&D takes time and effort. And in the artifactual world, money. So you don't get design for free, because it's costly. So now we can say what a skyhook is. A skyhook is a miraculous top-down lifter. It just hangs there in the air. It comes into existence by some sort of miracle. So, for instance, these don't count. These are not skyhooks. It says skyhook right on them. But somebody sent me this picture recently. Apparently some lighter-than-aircraft company has decided to call their blimps skyhooks for good reasons. But they're not miraculous. Those are actually a kind of crane. Cranes are do good lifting, but have been put in position by non-miraculous, by bubble-up processes. They have to sit firmly on the foundation of previous natural processes. And they have to have been designed in turn by those processes. So now, that's a skyhook. This wonderful satirical drawing appeared in the Atlantic Monthly a few years ago. It's called Deus Ex Machina, by a man named Guy Billout. And it's particularly appropriate because many of you will recognize this is Brunelleschi's dome in Florence. And when it was first constructed, it was the engineering marvel of the age. Nobody had ever been able to build a dome like this before. And particularly putting that lantern, as it's called, on the top was a stupefyingly grand engineering process. And how did he do it? Not with a skyhook, but in fact with a series of cranes that he invented for the occasion. So that it was, when he invented those new cranes, these new lifting devices, it opened up a whole new realm of design space that had never been accessible to builders before. And that's what cranes do in evolutionary biology too. They are innovations within the evolutionary process that are major transitions, as Maynard Smith and Zapmary call them, that open up new territory for design space explorations. Now, ever since Darwin, skeptics have thought, I just don't think it can be done with cranes. I don't think the bubble-up theory can do all that work. It can seem that some design or other is just too wonderful to have evolved by gradual, non-miraculous processes. So these skeptics have gone out looking for things that are, as the current jargon would have it, irreducibly complex, that's Michael Behe's term, requiring a top-down helping hand in order to come into existence. People looking for irreducibly complex exceptions to Darwinian theory are hunting for skyhooks. That's what you should do if you're a doubter of Darwin. You should try to prove that something's a skyhook. Ironically, in the 150 years since the origin of species, nobody's found a skyhook. But the hunts for skyhooks have often ended up discovering cranes. You start out thinking it's just not possible for this to have evolved. And you go to prove it, and you end up discovering a new trick that evolution had up its sleeve that nobody had thought of before. Aha, you've discovered a new crane. Now, when people think about what evolution can explain, there are people who are creationists. There are also people who are not really creationists. They think evolution can explain a lot. For instance, oh yeah, evolution can certainly account for a bird, you know, a nightingale, say. But not an ode to a nightingale. You think, wait a minute. You think a poem is more wonderful in design than a living bird? Really? You think all the intricacy of that living bird, that can be explained by bubble-up processes and natural selection, but a poem is more wonderful still? Well, maybe, but maybe not. What I want to do is to sketch the bubble-up path, pointing to a few landmarks along the way so that we can understand better what Darwin's strange inversion of reasoning was. This is a cover of Science magazine of several years ago, and what it shows is a motor protein. And the reason it's on the cover is that it is celebrating the discovery that motor proteins, which march around in your cells, nobody knew until this work whether motor proteins move sort of like an inchworm or left, right, left, right, left, right. Some very ingenious experiments proved that they move left, right, left, right, left, right. And in fact, there was a wonderful video which I will show you. I hope. Hello. Well, what's happened? Let me try that again. Aha. Now there is sound with this. I don't know if it's just a little music, but that's good because I have another. This is inside a cell. This is a wonderful animation from BioVisions. Those are microtubules. And here comes the motor protein.
Kill it with fire.